signing of documents by the coalition of the willing in Paris, U.S. plans for Greenland, and updates on the protests in Iran. Almost all the issues of Western security guarantees for Ukraine have been resolved, but this doesn't mean that peace will be achieved. Jared Kushner said this: talks by the coalition of the willing in Paris continue and, in the Americans' view, mark a major milestone in the peace process.
These arrangements were developed over the past month in close consultations with Ukrainians and Europeans. I'll tell you straight up, today was a very important stage. And I thank President Macron for bringing everyone together and for the tremendous behind-the-scenes work that everyone here has done to make this possible. This does not mean that peace has already been achieved, but without today's progress, peace would not be possible. The point is that if Ukraine is going to make a final agreement, it needs to be sure of its security after the deal. It must have credible deterrence mechanisms and real guarantees that this will not happen again. One of the reasons President Trump feels confident about the direction the security assurances are taking is because of his assessments and conversations with President Putin. He believes that if the right deal can be made, it will be an agreement under which both sides will seek de-escalation. There will be a real monitoring mechanism and real capabilities to prevent violations and, ideally, to de-escalate. In addition, strong deterrence will be created, peace through strength, under which it is unlikely that anyone will decide to start this again. So today is indeed an important step towards a possible peace agreement. This is a great milestone achieved today within a coalition of the willing. And I want to separately thank the U.S. Department of Defense and the outstanding team in the U.S.
Steve Witkoff said that on January 7th, the U.S. delegation will continue talks with the Ukrainian delegation.
We have made significant progress on several important tracks of work. In particular, on developing a bilateral system of security guarantees and a prosperity plan. The coalition also released a statement outlining its concept of security guarantees. We agree with the coalition that credible security guarantees and strong commitments to prosperity are necessary for lasting peace in Ukraine, and we will continue to work together on this.
Witkoff appeared at a joint press conference with Europeans for the first time. I'll show you a clip. He also publicly thanked Zelenskyy for his commitment to peace. Putin failed to derail the Ukrainian-American process. Germany will take responsibility for Ukraine's security and the security of the entire continent, Chancellor Merkel said. Britain and France agreed to create military centers across Ukraine after a ceasefire.
This is already being said by Keir Starmer. The goal of the coalition of the willing is to help achieve a durable peace and to ensure Ukraine's long-term security. This work has now advanced further than ever before. Today's joint declaration clearly states this. In addition, together with President Zelenskyy and President Macron, we went even further today. We have signed a declaration of intent on deploying forces in Ukraine in case a peace agreement is concluded. This is a key part of our firm commitment to remain with Ukraine over the long term. The document paves the way for the creation of a legal framework within which British, French, and partner forces can operate on Ukrainian territory, ensuring the security of Ukraine's skies and seas and the future rehabilitation and development of its armed forces. We have discussed these issues in detail today, and so I can say that after the ceasefire, the UK and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine and build secure facilities to store weapons and military equipment to support the country's defense needs. Together with our coalition partners, we have also agreed on a number of important additional steps. First, we will participate in the monitoring and verification of any U.S.-led ceasefire. Second, we will ensure long-term arms supplies for Ukraine's defense. Third, we will work on legally binding commitments in the event of a future armed attack by Russia. All of this is aimed at creating practical foundations on which the world can stand. But a peace agreement can only be reached if Putin is willing to compromise.
We want a ceasefire backed by strong security guarantees, unlike the 2015 Minsk agreements, says Friedrich Merz. He added that Ukraine is on the brink of an energy and humanitarian crisis, so its allies are stepping up efforts to end the war. Macron said Ukraine's post-war army will total 700,000, and Western partners have pledged to support it. Foreign forces from the Coalition of the Willing will be deployed to ensure compliance with the ceasefire, he said. In addition, the summit of the Coalition of the Willing agreed on mechanisms to monitor the ceasefire regime, and they will be provided by the U.S.
We think we're basically done with the security protocols, which are important so that Ukrainians know that when it ends for good. But we also think it's critical that we are very close to finalizing the kind of robust prosperity agreement that any country has ever seen in the aftermath of this kind of conflict. This will tend to create tremendous opportunities for the Ukrainian people, for people coming back from war and finding great jobs there. We're working with BlackRock, Larry Fink, on this project. And we believe it will be very important for the people of Ukraine. And we believe that a sustainable economy directly correlates and works with these security protocols. This makes Ukraine a strong, independent country, and we believe that this is very important in terms of their long-term future.
And one more very important point. Witkoff was asked how much one can trust Trump's guarantees.
And he gave his word to defend Ukraine. These security protocols are designed to, first of all, deter any further attacks in Ukraine. And second, if they occur, they are designed to protect, and they will do both. They are as strong as anyone has ever seen. Everyone on this panel acknowledged that, as did nearly all the countries that sat with us at the table today. The president is not backing away from his commitments. He supports Ukraine and wants a peace agreement, and we will be there with the Ukrainians, helping them achieve a final peace, and we are confident we will get there.
But the final joint statement on the results of the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing removed a clear commitment by the U.S. to support Ukraine, Politico reports. The published document says that security guarantees for Ukraine include monitoring of the U.S.-led ceasefire regime, as well as deployment of multinational forces on the territory of Ukraine in case of a peace agreement with Russia. Allies initially expected Washington to sign the Security Guarantees Declaration, but in the end, only the coalition countries signed it. Details of possible U.S. participation in the multinational forces were also removed from the draft statement. An earlier draft said the U.S. would back the forces if attacked and provide intelligence and logistics, but those points reportedly were left out of the final text. Macron, Starmer, and Zelenskyy signed a declaration of intent to deploy multinational coalition forces after the war ends. The full text isn't out yet, but Bloomberg says European diplomats were pleased with the latest talks with American partners. One source called the U.S. contribution a game changer for the coalition of the resolute. A second said U.S. commitments match what Europeans have been seeking for the past year. Some media write that Macron may even resume direct contact with Putin in the coming weeks, for example, France too. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to stoke its appetite for Greenland, primarily in the media space. Stephen Miller, Trump's senior policy advisor, says it's the position of the American state that no one will go to war with.
Greenland's prime minister, Denmark's prime minister, and other Danish officials responded to your wife's post. Katie Miller shared an image of Greenland covered in a U.S. flag and wrote, "Soon." After that publication, Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. Bloomberg reports that Denmark's prime minister responded to this today. I believe the American president should be taken seriously when he wants to get Greenland. But I will also make it clear that if the U.S. decides to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security established since the end of World War II. Can you rule out that the U.S. would ever try to take Greenland by force? Let me go back a step. The president has been saying clearly for months, I know you treat this as breaking news. The president has made it clear for months that the United States should be the country that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. True, but your wife posted this about a few hours after the Venezuela operation. I know, but no, I'll talk to you about this now. I think this is a very important conversation. The formal position of the U.S. government from the beginning of this administration, frankly, from the previous Trump administration, has been that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government. But can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table? What do you mean by military action against Greenland? There are 30,000 people living in Greenland, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis for their territorial claims? What are the bases for Greenland becoming a colony of Denmark? The United States is a NATO power. In order for the U.S. to secure the Arctic region, to protect NATO's interests, obviously Greenland has to be part of the U.S., and that's going to be a theme that we're going to pursue as a country. It's a process that we will undertake as a NATO community, so you're saying that the U.S. will use military force to take over Greenland? You can't deny it. I know you're trying very hard. Again, it's your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly that headline, the memorable headline that says Miller refuses to rule out the United States must have Greenland as part of the U.S. I'm just trying to get an answer to the question. There is no point even thinking or talking about this in the context you are asking about, a military operation. No one will fight the United States militarily over Greenland's future.
Experts Politico spoke to believe the U.S. may try to use a convenient moment and increase control over Greenland in the coming months. They point to the period before the November U.S. elections and around July 4th. In their view, Washington would avoid a military operation as it carried out in Venezuela and pursue a political influence campaign to gradually tilt the situation in its favor. This was said by Eurasia Group Managing Director Mujtaba Rahman. Possible steps include courting or bribing local politicians to expand the U.S. military and civilian presence on the island. Rahman says the U.S. has tools for this, and the risk of such a scenario is real. The main question is how they might try to do it. One option is to hold a referendum and declare Finland the 51st U.S. state, suppressing any protests. American military bases are already there. Another option is to use political and economic tactics, including gray schemes. That is to put fringe groups on the streets with the slogans, pay them off, and manufacture the appearance of mass support. As they tried a year ago, even then, success is far from guaranteed, and it all feels very Russian. And a quick update on Iran. Protesters have seized another city, Malikshahi, and local media warn the escalation could lead to a real civil war. Let's stay tuned, and I ask you to take care of yourselves and your loved ones. That's all for today, but we'll see each other tomorrow, and I will tell you even more. My name is Yana Bogoslavskaya. Thank you for your likes, comments, for supporting the channel.